this is what I really think is amazing about biodynamics. So you have nitrogen in the air, you have minerals in the earth, but can the plant access it? So that's what these preparations do. They help the plant bring it to them. So instead of making a chemical of nitrogen or phosphorus or calcium, it lets the plant draw it in itself. It's just this bringing in what's already in the life processes of the earth.
I'd like to welcome Maggie and Janey to this Hartensville community from FOXHOLLOW FARM. They are mother and daughter team. They've been farming together for, now I can say decades, because I think Janey's over 20. They've been together. They've been together and working together as a team. And like I said, third and fourth generation farmers. They are lifelong learners, and Maggie hosts a TV program called The Farmer and the Foodie, and Janey is a lifelong student of Rudolf Steiner. We're going to learn more about her journey and really what piqued her interest and curiosity into transitioning their farm over to biodynamics, which they did around 2005. And so I'm really excited about this conversation for a number of different reasons. One is I'm a multi-generational farmer too, and my grandfather, my opa, studied Steiner over in Germany, and he came over to Canada so that he could actually be a farmer. And then my dad incorporated some biodynamics, and my mom was my dad was kind of always in the background, and my mom was always in the forefront. And so when I was introduced to Maggie and Janey, I just felt this kindred connection, and so it just lands on a special place in my heart. So I thank you for being here and joining us today, and I'm so excited to learn about the legacy that you've been building throughout the generations, and maybe some of the bumps and hurdles and challenges that have come along the way and how you've worked through them. And then also one of your favorite preps, which is the BD 500, and just taking a look at the importance of the cow in maybe not just biodynamics, but just in our earthly walk, in our earthly experience. Like what is the cow, and why? It's not just biodynamics that has used the cow in their practices, but it's many cultures globally that have used the cow. So I'm really curious and about hearing about your experience and how you've used the cow, and what insights you have to share with us. So welcome, Janey and Maggie.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's wonderful to have you here. So Janey's mom, Maggie's a daughter, and
Obvious.
So I'm so curious. One of the other topic we wanted to touch on with you was one of the parts of biodynamics, which I think is not talked about and maybe misunderstood and kind of flies under the radar, is the social responsibility that biodynamics brings into its practices. And so I'm just so curious, how does that land for you with FOXHOLLOW Farm, with your partnership program? Like what inspired you to step into that?
Well, I'll start, but then she has the more practical information about it. I'm more the visionary. And so when we decided to convert, I really started reading the agriculture lectures. And what I was realizing is we're not just trying to bring a healing environment for the plants and the soil and the worms and the bugs and the birds and the cattle. It's the people. And when I thought about it that way, I realized, well, how are we going to extend this approach to the people? Not just the people that work there, but the people that visit, the people that come to us for a variety of reasons. So one thing that I made a decision about was if you're working the land, gardening, taking care of the cattle, pigs, etc., you need to live on the land. You need to be able to have time to just walk. Like at one point, Steiner talks about kind of this meditative walk that the farmer gardener does to connect with the land and really, in a sense, receive intuitions about what it needs. So that was my initial impulse to make sure, first of all, that those that are working on the land are really having the life experience of that land. My other golden rule was to open our farm to people. So we have a nature trail, we have events, we have, well, there's a lot of things we have. The other thing we have that might be very unique in our farm, if any of you have heard of Marco Pagajnik, he is a, what would I call him? Eco artist, but essentially he can sense the energy field on a piece of property. And he came to us in 2008 and we put stones in a certain place in our land, which is actually, he spoke of as the heart chakra. I mean, sorry, the crown chakra. And people come to that installation to get inspiration, to meditate. One of my sons got married there. They're still married. No, not the magic, but so in other words, people come to their, I think, to the land to make a connection with the spiritual world. That's what I really want to have happen. And I see it gradually happening, not by preaching it, but having it available, and also my own relationship with it, that I have a very meditative relationship with this piece of land. But I will let my daughter speak about the partner growers, which is another whole social community impulse.
And Maggie, before we go there, and please bring me back if I go on a different trail.
Okay.
Janey, I'm just so curious, what was it about biodynamics and maybe your grandmother's ethos and inspiration that was so moving to you that you knew that that was the path you wanted to go down?
Yeah, thank you for asking that. So my grandmother was an anthroposophist. That was rare, especially in Kentucky, I have to say. So, and so she spoke to us of our guardian angels, of the nature spirits. So in reincarnation, karma, I mean, I thought everyone believed that. I found out later that wasn't true. But in other words, as a child, I was told fairy tales and about the gnomes and the elementals. So at 14, I came to my grandmother and I said, "How do you know all this?" I was waking up. And she gave me Theosophy. If any of you know that book, but it's, foundational to understand some of Steiner's fundamental principles. And I read it at 14, and somehow I felt connected to it. And so fast forward many, many, many years, I was in study groups, etc. But and it was 33 years ago that I decided to start a Waldorf school in Louisville, Kentucky. So my first real study of the implementation of Steiner's approach was education. And I did that for many years. And then when my mother got ill with Alzheimer's, and it was up to myself and my siblings to decide what to do with this farm, which had been chemically treated for many years. And the three of us are very familiar with Steiner's work, and it took us 5 minutes let's do biodynamics. Because I knew how the education worked. So it must, his philosophy must work with land. So that's really what fired me up.
Hmm. That's really cool.
And it does work with land and animals and plants, yes.
Yeah. And so what was the biggest transformation that you noticed from going from that chemical model to the biodynamic model?
I would say the bird life, the insect life. When we first decided to do it, we had some consultants, biodynamic consultants, and they came to my house and I said, I need a shovel. A shovel? Okay, I'll get you a shovel. And this guy starts digging in the earth in one of the fields and shows it to me. There is nothing alive in this. Nothing. No bug, no worm, no. And I was just so heartbroken. Like, what do I do? And he did say, you need cows on this land because it's 1,300, over 1,300 acres.
Yeah. And is it cleared land, or there's nature trail, you said? Like, how much of it is cleared land and how much of it is like forested?
There's about 800 acres of pasture land now that used to be corn, soybeans, and wheat. And then the rest of it is woodlands.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
That is beautiful. And so Maggie, bring us to the partnership program and how that kind of fit in and was birthed.
Yes. So I would say obviously the birds and the butterflies and the life you can see around the farm is a big change with the biodynamic community, but the community aspect, in the sense that there are a lot of entrepreneurial farmers, entrepreneurial partners that are living on the land and part of this community, has been a very supportive part for me, being a young mother, well, not that young, but of a mother, but being a mother of young children, and really craving that like sense of community and farming and working alongside other people, especially other people who are independently running their own business and making their own livelihood out of biodynamic agriculture. It's fascinating to be able to talk, not only share knowledge around farming and tools and equipment and the infrastructure side of it, but also the business side of it. My background is in business, marketing, entrepreneurship. And so that's how I came into the business, was through writing a business plan while I was in college still for the farm. And so I would say the partner grower program, Janey had this vision of building a community. And so I was tasked with what is the best way to build this community and what will be like a good long-term future plan for building this community, since we do want it to last for generations. We're always thinking about the future generations, and that's how the partner grower program developed. But I will credit Janey for finding our first partner that made us believe a partner grower program is one possible and also a fabulous idea, because there are these people with self-initiative and drive and just honest, earnest work ethic. A guy named Pavel Ovechkin was our first partner, and he started in 2007. So early on, when we were first developing this farm community, Janey reached out to a farmer in our city that trained, had a great internship program and trained young farmers. And so she found this vegetable farmer because she, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but she believed that we were going to raise this meat and have wonderful meat, but to have a full plate, you need vegetables too.
I didn't want to just eat meat. Yeah.
And so that started kind of pre me. Pavel came on board, and Pavel and I kind of started at the same time. And he was a young farmer not only in age, but also in experience. And so we sort of went through with him of working out the kinks. And I mean, some of those first CSA years were bleak.
Yeah.
And he now, I would say, is one of the most skilled biodynamic farmers in our community that a lot of young farmers starting out now look to for mentorship and learning. And Janey's trust in sticking with someone who had that natural work ethic and drive, organization, all the skills you want to see in someone who wants to start a business around farming. He had it, just maybe not necessarily the farming skills. And to stick with him and to understand this is a long-term plan and a long-term vision was great of you to see this in him. And so I was looking into, okay, well, are there more Pavels out there and how do we want to structure this? And I learned about incubator farms and was curious about what like Joel Salatin was doing with his farming programs and other people in this space. Some great, mentors that I looked to as they built farming communities or internship programs. And we had an internship program. It was okay, but that didn't seem like the best route as far as getting people to really take ownership of their own project. That's what we were looking for in building this community. And the incubator program was probably the closest to the partner grower program model, in that you were providing infrastructure and maybe some initial funding even to get them started, some business advice, biodynamic preparation advice. We'll stir with them, we'll spray with them to get them up and going with that. We'll study together. The agriculture series lectures, we would study together in the beginning. And so that was there, but I didn't like the fact that the incubator program, the goal was to sort of lift these people up and help them build a business, and then they leave. I thought, well, I don't want to be here alone. And I mean, I joke with Pavel all the time. I'm like, we're going to be doing this together when we're old and we're watching our grandkids do it. And so that's sort of the vision I had, is I want to, I mean, I'm not naive to the fact that people move on, but I don't want to structure the partner grower program where that was the goal, is that they moved on. I wanted the goal to be that we could figure out equity. We could figure out how to make it a long-term successful model. And I'm kind of a geek around like HR and numbers and business structure. So of course I developed a handbook and all these things that went around the partner grower program. But what we've found is the handbook's great for rules, but what it really takes is a certain drive, a certain hope and dream and belief in that they want to farm in community and they want to start their own business. And maybe there's a few hiccups in the road, but they're determined to figure it out. And we went through some people that maybe there were great learnings, I think, on our end and on their end. And we ended gracefully, I would hope and believe, but people aren't really coming and going a lot with the partner grower program, but it's enough to where there's enough new people coming and there's enough people staying to where we've built this community of farmers where we're good friends, where we look up, and on the hottest day in August when you're harvesting tomatoes in a high tunnel just dying, you look up and you see someone else is doing the same thing, and so you're like, okay, this is reasonable. And I think that is what has been so great about the partner grower program, is you're not only growing more farmers, but you're building community, you're building businesses, and you're only making every single one of our businesses stronger by coming together.
So powerful. And what would you say are some of the cornerstones that make your partner grower program so efficient and robust?
Ooh, I want to say one thing about it is, again, this is my connection to Steiner's philosophy. I really wanted them to have freedom.
Mhm.
Freedom in the sense it's their business. They're not an employee. You know, if they want to leave, they can. They won't be fired necessarily. There was some people that we couldn't renew their lease because it wasn't working out. But I wanted them to have real ownership and freedom of their business. But the umbrella was biodynamics.
Mhm.
You have to be under this umbrella. And I don't police them about that, but they know that it's important for them to have the compost pile and have it prepped, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, there's the practical things like access to equipment, to buildings, to
Mhm.
infrastructure like hoop houses and greenhouses and tractors and all of that. Access to land, that's a
Mm.
huge one. That's where we started actually, is what was the number one need for young entrepreneurial farmers, and it was they
Land.
didn't have access to land.
Mhm.
And we all know that. But I think it's simple things like hosting a monthly farm lunch for everyone to organically come together. We host snack time at FOXHOLLOW Market, where we open up our market to all the people that live on the farm, and we just have fun together. We like grab drinks for free and you know, out of the cooler, and get snacks from the market that we normally offer everyone else. But just those like organic moments of hanging out. One of the biodynamic conferences, I don't remember where we were, what we did, but it was on the field trip day, and it was based around providing space for like natural gathering, natural hangout. Oh, I can even remember the farm, but
It was
anyway.
John outside of Chicago or Madison.
Madison, yes, it was the Madison one.
Yeah.
But they showed us all these just like super simple,
Mhm.
maybe a few stumps around a fire pit, or like a couple picnic tables under a tree, and how to set up your farm where there's these just like natural gathering areas.
Mhm.
And I do believe, I mean, this is a silly thing to say, is helping our community a lot, but it is those natural gathering areas and intentional sort of gathering for fun around food that
Mm.
I think is bringing us the most success in that program.
Mm.
Mm.
Also, you touch base with them.
Yes.
I mean, you do.
Yeah. That's one that we do. One thing that happens a lot, they'll hear about our partner grower program, and they'll say, oh, I want that. I want a pobble. I want that on my farm. And I say, do you farm on your farm? No. Do you live on your farm? No. Well, you have to actually be involved and observe and walk the land and be a part of the program. It's not, you've got to hold people accountable in their own way, but also like you need to hold yourself accountable for working towards the same mission as well.
Yes, so true. And so we won't dive into this too deeply, but just to give people a bit of a deeper understanding of the arrangements, it sounds like people are leasing the land or leasing a portion of the experience so that they can do their farming within your container. Is that
Yes. Like the practicality is they do have a signed lease that we review annually. And then once they've been there for 7 years, we sign a 10-year lease with them. And we are working towards building an equity structure to where they do have some sort of retirement plan, if you will. Because most farmers' retirement plan is selling their farm.
Yeah.
And so understanding that and recognizing that as well is part of sort of the long-term part of that.
That is really cool. And do you have a flat lease arrangement in your structure that is the same for everybody, or is it individualized as you bring new partners on?
It's the same for everybody. It's $100 an acre a year, which is very affordable for land. And honestly, the value is I mean, we can't keep an eye on 1,300 acres and we just can't.
An eye, but maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. Not a deep connection. We can't deeply connect, we feel, with 1,300 acres. And the fact that they're giving love, attention, observation, also building soil, building health, taking like pest management, like we all understand, like, don't let weeds go to seed, take care of your pests in the most healthful way possible, because you're affecting your neighbors in your community if you don't. And so they're adding all this value to the land. So the $100 isn't necessarily even, it's basically just to like hold someone accountable and make them really believe that they can do this. I think people want some sort of like actual lease and actual connection.
And they also have have a lease for their lodging, their housing.
So they get to live there as well.
Yeah.
Which is amazing. And then is there profit sharing as well, or is it just the lease of the land?
They keep all their profit.
Yeah.
Well, that's a gift.
And then infrastructure, we do, I mean, from a business standpoint, like let's say they need to build a big deer fence or something that would be more expensive and hard for them to take on in a year. We do provide small loans to the farmers to do things like that.
That's really cool. So I just want to pause here, and if anybody has any questions, maybe make a note of them, and we can circle back to questions about the partnership program and how that works too.
Yeah, I would love to talk about partners we're looking for. Can I?
Oh, yeah. Tell us partners you're looking for.
Yeah, like, am I allowed to pitch?
Yes, 100%. That's part of the
okay.
Here.
Poultry is something. We had a poultry partner who was wonderful, but like ducks, turkeys, chicken. We have a great market for all of those items. We sell a lot of that, and we partner with another farmer now that we don't have one on our farm. And then the other thing is woodlands. We have so many woodlands. We have 500 acres of woodlands, and there's so much potential in agroforestry and sustainable harvesting and all of that. I mean, mushrooms, whatever anyone dreams of in the woods. I definitely would love to see care and attention go towards that. I mean, we care and attend to the woods, but we'd love to see more partners enjoying the beauty that we have naturally on our farm.
Yeah, it's amazing what we can harvest from the woods, isn't it? Yeah, I've been in Saskatchewan for the last 4 years, and just back here in the Fraser Valley since September, and I'm just so awed by all the resources that are in our backyard in the woods. And in Saskatchewan, we had some, but they weren't quite as rich as they are here in the Fraser Valley. So yeah, it has me awed right now. So let's shift over to well, before we do, is there anything else about the partnership program that is on your heart that you want to share or amplify?
No.
Okay. And how many partners do you have?
We have, so one way the partner program has evolved was we have partner businesses now as well. So we have about 15 partners, but not all of them are necessarily growing food. Like we have this amazing herbalist who's, I guess that's kind of food, so that doesn't count, but like a Reiki master is on our farm and offering people and clients and customers, and a spiritual medium, a biofeedback woman. So there's other elements to that as well.
Yeah, you're diversifying, and that's part of FOXHOLLOW's legacy as well, is that healing space that you hold for people and people coming to FOXHOLLOW for healing. Is that still an active part of the farm experience?
Yes, now it is. It's sort of reshaped, revision. So just to circle back, my grandmother started an alternative health clinic and bed and breakfast on the farm in the late 90s. And so we inherited some infrastructure around that, which was a whole healing center
Yeah.
that we've converted into what we call the farm center. And the farm center has about 10 office buildings where practitioners are leasing office space and providing healing.
Wow, that's really
Valid.
neat. Yeah, super powerful. Okay. And speaking about healing, let's move on over to the cow. And I am so curious about this. I can see that big smile on your heart and on your face. And Janey, tell us about, like, what is it about the cow that kind of lights you up from the inside out?
Yes, and I'm not going to go into details about how to make preparations, but my connection with the cow has really grown, of course, since we started having them on our land. And this is what I think about. I think about the cow. When you see a cow, they're usually either lying on the ground or their head is down on the ground grazing. They're so connected to the earth, so connected, as opposed to like a deer, they go boom, boom, jump all over the place when they see you. But a cow, if you're not making lots of noise, but you slowly come to the cow, will just kind of raise its head, look at you, and then go back to the earth. And what I think of as the cow is really, it's almost like the divine feminine. It's this feminine being, even though it might be a bull, because it's so connected to Mother Earth, so connected to Gaia. And I know that there's a few places where Steiner talks about the cow as a meditative being, because it's always kind of slowly either chewing its cud, but very interfaced. And also, one phrase really sticks with me. He said, when you see a group of cows, imagine that each one is a little sun for the earth. So a part of my connection to the cow is those images, or those qualities of meditation, of connecting with the earth. And then I started learning more about their manure, which is like a miracle for the earth, and especially the lactating cow. And I know there's lots of facts and figures. I don't know them all, but I know that the manure from a lactating cow has the most nutritional value for the soil of any manure of any animal on the earth. And when I learned that, I thought, oh, this is amazing. The digestive process that's so lengthy for the cow. And I also learned that the horn is a part of the digestive process. It goes in and out. And so then that made sense, that you put the manure in the horn, which is a digestive organ, and into the earth when the spirit soul of the earth is the most inside itself, as opposed to right now in the summer, it's just expanded. So the soul spirit of the earth is inside the earth in the winter, and all these processes, these crystallizing processes, you put that horn in the earth for the winter and dig it up in the spring, and it's gone from this gooey, smelly, sometimes green looking stuff, manure, which we do it on our farm. We get spoons, and some of us just use our hands, shove it in the horn, and it's totally transformed. And you smell it smells like sweet earth, and you don't have a smell, and it's this grainy, beautiful, humus feeling earth. And to think you just take a quarter of a cup of that per acre after you've stirred it both ways to allow the planetary influences to come in. The whole process to me is so not even mysterious, but sacred to me, the whole process. And then here you are spraying it on your garden, spraying it in your yard, thinking these thoughts for the earth, you know, these positive intentions for the earth. The whole process to me is a spiritual practice. So probably went way more than you were expecting.
No, that's great. I love the picture that you painted for us and how deeply connected you are to the practice and also the curiosity of not just practically of what the cow brings to land into the farm, which comes out its back end, but what, you know, what that journey of the digestion and of the energy of the food that the cow is ingesting is like, that's so powerful. And you said uh, like that the horn is part of the cow's digestive system, so, and that might be new to some people. Can you just walk us through, like, if the grass, so the cow is chewing the grass and you said it has a really complex digestive system, can you just like walk us through that so we can have a deeper understanding?
Right. And of course, you also want to make sure that the grasses on your farm bring them the best nutrition, depending on where you live, of course. So and also the way the cow eats the grass, they don't eat all the way down into the roots unless you leave them too long in that field, right? So they're actually stimulating the growth of the grass. So they're actually supporting the grass by just kind of pruning it, right? So they take that into their system. And then you have the 4 stomachs and also it comes back as cud, and then they chew it and it goes back in. So it's this very long process of breaking grass down. And when you think of digestion, the human digestion, it does, you know, we don't digest things as fully as the cow, but also there's the warmth element in the digestion process. So it's essentially it's cooked. And so by the time, and also so there are blood vessels that go into and out of the horn. So part of this digestive process, it's taken actually into the blood and goes up and down through the horn. So that's how it is a part of it. And so the result of it is that there's so many microbial life forms, to speak of it that way, in this manure that feeds the bugs, the beetles, the grasses. And so that it's like feeding the best nutrition, not just to the soil, but to the insects, the worms, the dung beetles love it. And as they graze, first of all, they're pruning the grasses and they're distributing the manure all over our fields, right? And they're kind of stamping it down. So they're doing a lot of the healing for us.
Yeah, what's so curious to me about it is how we're learning more and more about the benefits of fermentation, right? And so now we're fermenting our foods before we eat them, and that's literally what a cow is doing.
Yes, fermenting
Right?
it.
It's fermenting its food over and over and over again before it
Yeah.
leaves the other end. So so Terrell said thank you for emphasizing the importance of their spiritual connection to earth, and I want to circle back to that. Like, what is it about the, I guess, like, what is your personal experience with BD 500, and what's so moving about it? Because I asked you if you could talk about any prep, what would it be and why? So why BD 500? What's so juicy about it?
Yeah, so juicy, but I love it. And you can
Literally.
pop in. Well, if you're talking just basic plant growth, what it does is supports the root growth, the first part of life, rooting into the earth, right? You have a seed rooting into the earth. And how does it support that? It does support that with the nutrients, but if you're talking, which I am a student of, the nature spirits or elementals, it helps those elementals that are in charge of supporting the root growth. In fact, Steiner speaks of them as root spirits. I guess in a fairy tale, they're gnomes. But this idea that down in the earth, there are all kinds of minerals, right? And that plant needs the minerals. And so for the root to be able to bring in what it needs, that's what the BD 500 helps it to bring what it needs from the soil. And the elemental beings are a part of that. But this is what I really think is amazing about biodynamics. So you have nitrogen in the air, you have minerals in the earth, a lot of different things in the earth. But can the plant access it? So that's what these preparations do. They help the plant bring it to them. So instead of making a chemical of nitrogen or phosphorus or calcium, it lets the plant draw it in itself. And to me, it's like a human being. I mean, I can take this pill, and it might help me with such and such, but what if I exercise more? What if I meditate? What if I do things naturally? Not that you don't have to use a pill ever, but it's just this bringing in what's already in the life processes of the earth. Yeah.
Maggie, you have something to add?
As far as
be like
yeah,
the spray, because
yeah, I
you
was gonna
spray a lot
say,
of
I think I could add more to the making and the spraying
spraying.
of it. Well, one, the making of biodynamic preparations is one of my favorite times of year because we all come together and all ages and generations, people bring their kids, their grandparents, like it's just one of those amazing connected times where you're all working towards the same purpose in your own individual way. I guess similar to the partner grower program. And last year, I would say one of the highlights, so we have this wonderful woman who comes and visits us during prep making time, Laura Riccardi, who's very involved in biodynamics and is a consultant with biodynamics. And she always gives a nice connection and intro. But one thing Laura and I have been working on is connecting ourselves and the community with the cow more during these times. And so taking time to visit the cow and be with the cow on the day that we're collecting the manure and then on the day that we're stuffing the horns. And so bringing in those deeper connections and more generations during the prep making is my favorite part about BD 500 is when we're making BD 500, we make sure to connect with all the different levels of making that prep. And then as far as spraying goes, I really enjoy taking an hour to sit in my garden with stirring and spraying, creating chaos and what pops into my head. And it's a very meditative process, especially if you're alone. I do it with my kids some too, which they are playing around and doing their own thing, but I can tell that they have a connection to what I'm doing and what is happening, especially as they're getting older and verbalizing that. So I would say that the spraying part to me, my favorite part is spending the time to think about what does our farm really need and how can I listen and be there. The biggest part is listening and what comes when you're listening.
That's so powerful, Maggie. And how do you do that?
well, one, be quiet. I quit talking. And that's something I don't think I do very well in my normal life. So I have to intentionally be quiet and be open. And I'd say when I first started, I think ever since, I mean, I was brought up very similar to how Janey said she was brought up by her grandmother. I mean, I was brought up by her. And so we had lots of fairy tales. And I also thought everyone believed in all these things and just until I, you know, went to school and other churches and things where not everyone had the same upbringing as me. She started the Waldorf school after I was older, and so I didn't go to a Waldorf school. I was brought up very Waldorf, though, and I'm grateful for that because traditional education was hard for me, and my mom made sure I never felt like I wasn't very smart and capable, and taught us a lot about creative problem solving, which honestly, I think this is going back to my connection is I think I always, in quiet moments, heard something or knew something was bigger than me. But it wasn't until I was older and learned more about what intuition and meditation and deep listening really was. And I'm being pretty vulnerable here, and like I feel like this is a safe crowd, but there are so many moments in stirring a spray or doing something where something will pop in your head, a thought or an image. I love images. I love colors. I'm a very visual, hands-on learner. And so like literally closing my eyes and just seeing, like sometimes it'll be the same images come to me, like a night sky with very clear stars. And that's to me meaning like, okay, connect to the cosmos. What's going on in the cosmos? Is my spray during a time where it's connected to the cosmos? And I obviously use like the calendar and all of that to do my sprays, but I just think that, yeah, I guess listening is like actually paying attention when you're closing your eyes. You don't have to close your eyes, but what do you see in your mind's eye? What do you hear? And it very often it's the simplest tiny thing, like go to the woods. And so I'll be like, oh, okay. And then I'll end up going to the woods and something magical will happen. Or I don't know. Usually there's a reason of whatever I'm hearing. Sometimes I'll hear that a certain area needs some attention. And when I go over to that area, maybe I run into someone unique, or I see some magical butterfly, or something usually happens in that area someone told me to go to.
Man, that's powerful, Maggie. And how do you build that confidence muscle of deep listening?
Practice.
Doing it.
Believing in it. I'd say that was my biggest shift. I think it was always there. But are you brave enough to, one, say it out loud? This is very brave territory for me. And then two, I honestly think it's practice, because once you start doing it, then you're like, oh,
that works. Yeah.
And then when it starts to repeat itself, you're like, it's validating.
Well, I honor you and your bravery and your vulnerability to show us all what it is to believe, and to really dare to sit quietly, to listen, to notice, and modeling us that to us so powerfully. So thank you. Thank you.
Because I was raised by her, but
right. I see you, Janey. I see you.
But I still practice because there are a lot of times I'm in a doubt fest. Is this really what we're supposed to be doing? Right. Don't we all feel like sometimes you're just, oh yeah. And then other times like the communication isn't there. it's a little bit like you feel like it's cut off, maybe your own doubt or fear, cut it off, but you keep on doing it. I mean, it's a real practice, right?
Yeah. So how do you get through those dope fests?
Oh, well, I would say I call my anthroposophical buddies and I say, okay, does this make sense? I'm scared to do this, blah, 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 blah. You know, yeah, I have friends that can help me recenter and believe that I do have a connection with the spirit world. Yeah.
That's really great.
Walk a lot. You go to the stones.
I go
You go to the
woods.
woods. I know all her spots.
And how about you, Jane, Maggie? How do you get through the dope fests?
Same. I mean, I call mentors. I call my mom. We're rarely doubting at the same time.
Yeah, thank goodness.
So it's good because we can kind of catch each other.
Yeah.
And then other mentors that have been farming for many generations, while we're generational land stewards, we're not generational farmers. So her parents weren't farming the land. They were leasing it out to first a dairyman and then second a 3-crop rotation farmer. So we didn't have the knowledge. The farm, I didn't grow up on the farm. I grew up visiting the farm. She took me to the farm all the time, but I don't have that generational farming knowledge that I crave. And so talking to other generational farmers, a lot of my doubt will come more from my lack of farming knowledge than from like, is this what we should be doing? It's very clear that building a biodynamic farm community, raising grass-fed beef. Actually, now I'm like, I'm sure I've called mom and said, should we be doing this? But but it's more, I think what fills me is talking to generational farmers who are like, oh yeah, my granddaddy went through that too.
Yeah.
And this is what he taught me. And oh, my father taught me this. My mother taught me that. And so talking to people who have that ancestral knowledge that we all need and crave.
Yeah, I love that. It's one of my favorite tools to use as well. That's why I have Leslie in the house. She might not have the farming background, but she's got all the other good juju, right? It's important to have good people around you who understand you, who see you, who support you, and who want to see you bloom and blossom and flourish. So, and this community, every single person in the room here are those people. And I'm just so grateful to have the honor to be growing with each of you here, and even people who are tuning in afterwards. It's this community is really next level. So I'm just noticing we're at the top of the hour, and one of the things that I want to go into the Q&A. And before we do, one of the things I was so odd about was the amount of horns you have. Like there's how many horns, so BD 500 for people who are new is where you're taking the cow horn, the female cow horn, and you're stuffing it with a cow manure, ideally manure from a lactating cow, and then it's buried. So some farmers will bury only one farm or a gardener because that's all they have, and then we have people who might have 3 or 4, like I have 3 or 4 on my little farm here. And I even used a sheep's horn just to experiment this year to see what would happen, because I was curious. I was like, well, I'm curious, so I just want to see what happens. So I did that as well. And then we have our Biodynamic BC society, and there's lots and lots of horns, but not as many as you are bearing. So how many is it?
It depends on the year. If we have nothing, our first burial was 1,300 horns. But then, like last year, we only needed 200 horns worth. So it depends on what our needs are. Yeah.
That's amazing. And where do you
They don't come from our cattle, though. They come from Madison, Wisconsin, and Viroka, Brian Wickert.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that many horned cattle, and they they come from processed cattle.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah. That's really cool. And what's one of your favorite things about the BD 500 that we haven't touched on?
I think one of my favorite things is, first of all, the process of stirring and putting your intentions in that, and as you spray your intentions, and also the fact that I'm feeding the gnomes. I have to say that.
I
Okay.
just love that. Yeah. And so can you just tell us what the gnomes are, Maggie?
Janey?
Or pardon me, Janey? Yeah.
That's all right. So, so the elemental beings, there are beings for water, earth, fire, and air. And these beings are the reason we have any form. There's life force, but it has to be into form. So they keep the form, like the form of a leaf. And actually, in the fall, when the leaves disintegrate, the elemental being that was in charge of keeping that form is released. And I love the fall because, like, they're released until they need to work again, So the actual gnomes, their job is inside the earth. And, it's a lot of, I think the thing that I think of the most of what they do is they get inspired. Like, this is a rose plant. So they get an inspiration from the cosmos during the winter, the archetype of the rose, and then they bring that message to the plant. That's pretty amazing. Yeah.
It is. I love your explanation. Thank you. Cheryl is asking, where is male cattle manure effective for preps? And I'll just add, so male cattle manure effective for preps, and also the male horn. What are your thoughts on those?
From what I know, it doesn't have to be a female horn, but I might be wrong. But because the horn is still the digestive system of the male, I might be wrong though. Some of you all might know that. I would think that the male manure would work, maybe not as primo, but they still have the 4 stomachs. They still have that huge, amazing digestive system. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, the lactating female manure makes sense just on an intuition level. I'm not sure what a scientist who's actually studied the nutrient quality, or I don't even know what you're measuring when you're measuring this.
Yeah.
The effectiveness. If you think about a woman who has just given birth and the vigor and vitality in that woman's
The milk. Whoa.
milk, manure, body, I imagine it to be a lot stronger.
Well, science is showing us more and more that the female, whether it's a lactating woman or a lactating cow, their bodies literally create, almost you could say out of thin air, the nutrients that are needed for those offspring, right? And so that is where all that extra nourishment is coming from. And so to me too, it only makes sense that would be ideal. And at the same time, I really encourage people to start where you're at and with what you can do. So never let something like not having a female horn stop you from seeing what you can do, or female lactating manure. There are some people there, like all practices, there can be some rigidity within some people's beliefs and understanding. I have heard that it does have to be a female, or ideally a female horn, because of exactly what we are talking about. The female is life-giving, right? A female is like that, is the sentient essence of the female, and the life-giving energy of the female. And at the same time, male energy can be very rooted. And so trusting that if all you have is male manure and a male horn, then maybe that's exactly what your ecosystem needs until
Right.
you can source the other pieces. Yeah. So I see lots of thank yous. What other questions do you have for Maggie and Janey about BD 500, the cow, partnership program? One of the things I'll just touch on, well, you're coming up with your questions if you have any, is I loved how you amplified the way the cows chew like harvest their greens, right? And because a lot of the times, even when we're mowing our lawns, people go as low to the ground as they can, and what they don't realize is they're cutting off all the life force of that lawn. And that happens in our pastures when we let the animals go right down to the bottom of that, I'll say that the green grass, legumes, whatever they're eating. It just kills them all, and it's shown that they grow back way slower or not at all, and unwanted plants come in. Whereas if we cut them or harvest them or let the cows and animals graze them to just a natural state where there's like a good wick on the plant still, that the plants actually are coming back stronger and with lots of vitality and nutrients.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also the nutrient quality in that first bite, like all the protein is at the top. And so that's been that was kind of a big aha moment with me. Our head herdsman, Derek Lawson, I definitely want to honor him. He has his master's in forages, and so has been studying grasses for quite a while. Also is a generational cattle farmer, so has the generational knowledge. And so he's taught us a ton about the nutrient quality of the grasses. And that's where I learned that from. But yeah, grass is fascinating. I mean, yeah,
world.
We might be raising grass-fed beef, but I would say we're soil and grass farmers before we're beef farmers.
Yeah.
Yes, amen to that. And tell us what you do 100% bluegrass fed. What does bluegrass mean?
Oh, that's a cheeky little marketing thing. But so Kentucky is known for bluegrass, which is a certain type of grass. And so we have bluegrass in our pasture, obviously, but it's only a certain time of year. So it's not always bluegrass fed. There's all sorts of grasses in our pasture, but it's just a fun tagline that we came up with a few years ago.
That's fun. What do you most want people, and I'll let you both answer this, what do you most want people to understand about biodynamics?
Well, I think it's a little bit like Waldorf education. I think it's a healing practice for the practitioner. I really do. Not just healing, but expanding your understanding of the whole universe and how life works. So that's what I think.
And Maggie?
Yeah. When I'm talking about us being a biodynamic farm, one thing I'm always very clear about is I want to honor the indigenous methods of farming and the people that were farming way before we named it biodynamics, and just honor that. And then also the other thing about biodynamics, to me, it's very intuitive and it makes sense. And so coming at it, it can be intimidating, right? Like biodynamics in itself, like the word's a little intimidating, and people are connecting a lot these days with regenerative, which biodynamics, I would say, is a form of regenerative agriculture. I'm not sure what the biodynamic people say, actually. I should know that. Maybe they say it's the best form of regenerative agriculture. But to not be intimidated by the complexities of it, but it just makes sense as life, like that we're all connected. And of course the cosmos and the moon are gonna affect our farming practices. To me, that's just like, well, yeah. And so don't be so caught up in like, is it woo-woo or is it weird? Just embrace the fact that it makes sense and it's nature working to heal nature.
Yes, 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 and yes. And we have a question here. Have you ever applied the BD preps in the forest area?
Oh, we ever what? When we first started, I did that. I
Mm.
went through the woods and my idea was to get all whatever 400 acres of it. I
Yeah.
don't think I did, but yes. And I wish I was doing it now.
Yeah.
But we kind of got caught up in the other work of it.
Yeah, we
I
had
think it's
big
good work.
dreams.
Good work to do that. Good work.
That's beautiful.
That's everyone knows about Josephine Porter Institute. Maybe they don't, but they had something called a tree harmony kit. So I used to go to certain trees and help them. So yeah, they're a great resource for
Yes. Yes. If you're looking for biodynamic preparations and you're in America, you can get preps from Josephine Porter Institute. And they do actually mail, I think, worldwide as well, because I think I know farmers in Ecuador who've got their preps
Okay.
JPI. Yeah. And otherwise, you can just search biodynamic gardening or associations or farmers near me, and you can almost always find somebody that's kind of close-ish that's already making preparations or knows where you can get preparations in your area or in your country. And biodynamic farmers, in my experience, are super generous in their sharing, and they want to help, and they want to they want to see you be successful. So just don't be shy. Pick up the phone, send an email, shoot off a DM. What's been your biggest challenge in practicing biodynamics?
Practicing it or creating this kind of community?
Just your biggest challenge. Yeah, practicing it.
Oh, practicing it. Okay. Gee. Well, I would say personally, for me, probably my biggest challenge is timing. You know, like you look at the calendar and you think, oh, I've got to get those out right now. And maybe to have more grace for myself, not being there at the perfect time. Yeah, it's timing. So I usually do all the compost preparations. And so the farmers tell me, oh, we just turned it, time for the prep. So like, oh yeah, okay, I gotta make sure the planets are aligned, and maybe it's perfectionism is my greatest challenge. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think it's biodynamics that's the challenge.
That's a good insight. Well, it never is, right? It's art.
Never is.
Oh, so yeah, so that's great. And how do you overcome it?
Oh, I would say perfectionism is what I have to overcome. Constantly reminding myself that that is a habit, or I don't know if it's a habit or it's just in me. Get messy. Go total opposite of perfectionism.
I like it. That's a good way to work around it, to get through it. I see Walton's nodding his head. Yes, you feel that, Walton? You can just relate with that. Yeah. So I just want to invite everybody to go and check out FOXHOLLOW Farm. You can find them on the website at foxhollow.com. You can catch Maggie on her show at the farmerandthefoodie.com. They are also on Instagram at FOXHOLLOW Farm KY, and on YouTube and on Pinterest. And James says, I'm an organic farmer in Ireland. Are there any BD farmers in Ireland? Also, I have a massive problem with rushes, which have no nutritional value and can't be eaten by cattle. And I'm looking for a solution. Oh, you're talking about bulrushes, right? Probably, or cattails. Some people call them cattails. Do you have any insight for that?
Well, I do think that the collecting the seeds and burning them, ashing it's called in the biodynamic world, because we had horrible thistles, cockleburs. It took like 3 years, but I think it really worked. It's amazing. I can't tell you exactly how to do it, but because my husband is the one that's in charge of that. But that has helped. I don't know exactly what rushes are, but for a while with our thistles, we just had to actually go mow them down, mow them down, mow them down until they kind of, the other plants were able to come up. But we always did this ashing, which helped.
Yeah, the ashing is a burning of the seed, and then literally, and then you just sprinkle it around the area that weed is coming up, that weed that you don't want. And
Yeah,
that,
we just put the ashes in our normal spray.
Yep.
I don't know any biodynamic farmers in Ireland, but I would love to meet some.
No, the association might.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think we have some biodynamic farmers in our community. So send us an email, James, and we'll have your email from registering here, and we'll look that up for you, and we'll try to make some connections for you there.
Yeah, connecting with other biodynamic farmers is definitely a highlight of my life. Just other farmers in general, really. They don't even have to be biodynamic.
Thank you, Maggie and Janey, for your time and your insights, and for sharing your hearts and being so vulnerable with us about your walk with biodynamics and farming and stewarding the land that you've been gifted to steward here. So thank you. I really deeply appreciate you.